Planes. Planes take us to different places. Planes are uncertain, but for some people, like me, planes are fun. I like to notice the different people directing themselves to the same place, but for different reasons. I like to notice the excitement or the frustration in the passengers. And I like to notice the stories they each carry. Personally, that is one of the main reasons why I love traveling. To me, traveling enriches our minds and rids us from ignorance, because every place you go has some type of poverty or lifestyle gap. There is some type of inflation or deflation, or some type of exotic food or accent. Every country, city, town is different. Each one has their own story. So some people who know me very well and who know my story may be impressed as to why I'm so into planes. They may even wonder how I can go on one, but I'll leave you to decide if I'm crazy to do so. Planes came to have an impact in my life after I experienced a life-changing accident. 7 years ago, during Christmas vacation, I was getting back to Caracas with my family from an island called Margarita in Venezuela. When we were taking off, our small plane had some troubles. We decided to go back and have it checked by officials, and when they said it was okay, we retook our journey as if nothing had happened. But little did I know that after falling asleep in my Nana's lap, I would wake up to sirens, strong movements, and voices asking for my name. It didn't take long to realize that I was on my way to a hospital. Lots of confusion, tests, screenings, and stitches came along after I, a 10-year-old, was told I'd suffered a plane crash. However, it was not until 5 days later that I learned I'd been the only survivor. As you can imagine, shock overruled me. In that exact moment, I felt a big gap whining inside of me, deep in my heart. And I struggled to get over the fact that I had lost my biggest treasure, my family. And so thoughts invaded my mind, and I would ask myself, how was I gonna be able to carry on without a mom or a dad or my sister? And I didn't know how such thing had become. And I felt worthless. And I was simply angry at God, a figure who had been taught that would protect me in any case. But in this case, I just felt like he failed me. The hardest part was living with my grandparents, because that gap between the two generations really impacted how I related to them. All of that grudge inside of me, I would take it out on them. And I had the love and the support of lots of friends and family members, so I would walk around every day with a smile on my face. Yet, when I get home and close the door of my room, that smile would vanish. But that happens a lot, doesn't it? A lot of us go around with masks around our faces, pretending everything's okay. But why do we do that? Why are we so afraid to share our emotions? Do we believe, or do we think that no one else is breaking in the inside? That no one else is going through a tough time? I remember that I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. And then I wanted to show them that I could live through this and that I had accepted this way of living. But in reality, all I wanted to be is where my family was. After 4 years, I was able to get out of this so-called depression. It was through confirmation catechism, where I was able to find hope and direction to my life again. And finding a way where I could close that little gap inside of me, or a big gap. Every day I would learn more and more about my religion, and I would rebuild that relationship I had with God, understanding more and more why I was in such position. Yet, there was still a little tiny bit that wouldn't close itself. And it was acceptance. Something I thought I'd done, but it wasn't until my last church retreat that I hadn't realized I had it. During that retreat, I had to do a small activity where I was given 3 pieces of paper, and I had to write the most important things in my life. I wrote friends, faith, and family. So I closed my eyes, and a piece of paper was taken out from my hands. When I opened my eyes and saw which piece of paper was taken away from me, it had been the one that said family. So I was a little confused because I already knew that. I already knew family had been taken away from me. But then I took that moment and I had to interpret it in another way. I realized that all this time I'd been putting my love and focus into my friends and into my faith. And that I had forgotten about the family that I had left, my grandparents, the people who had been loving me every single day and whose love I'd been neglecting. All because I didn't want to accept that they were the only ones I had left. In that moment, it was like a barrier that rushed down, and I felt so much happiness and love because I understood what I had to do in order to live a happy life again. And therefore, I was able to look at my situation through a new perspective. So, you may think it's crazy how one small piece of paper changed my whole mentality. But I believe that God does His magic at His own pace. And I'm glad He did, even though it took Him a long time. So this new mentality I talk about is when I think about all those other kids who lose their families. Yet, they don't have a place to sleep. They don't have a plate to eat from. And they don't have clean water to wash in. I see how lucky I am to have the love and the resources that keep pushing me through and keep pushing me to build my story. So now, I like to see my life as a journey on a plane, where I know everything is not gonna be okay, when I know that things are gonna change, but I live every day thinking about the good things and not on the bad ones. Of course, I'm not gonna lie, I have times when stress takes over me and mood swings all over the place. But I recognize that it's because we're not perfect. We all go through that. Don't you have that day when if one person approaches you and says something that triggers, you explode? Well, at least I do, and a lot. But what I like is that I know that I need those bad moments to appreciate the good ones. And that my friends know that when I'm not stressed about school or my mood swings are not all over the place, my smile and laughter are brighter than anything. And that is because I recognize that I have a million reasons to be happy about. I have a million reasons to look around the world and notice those small things that tell me how privileged I am to be where I am. And that tell me that I should value every second of it. So a bad moment is like you're playing with turbulence. It doesn't let you drink your water right, or doesn't let you sleep, but that it's momentary. Which brings me back to my plane. In my plane is filled with different people who go on and off, and we switch destinations depending on the life phase we're in. In advance, I do not plan or buy the seat to my next plane. Instead, I wait. But I wait anxiously to see to whom I get to sit next to, and whose stories I get to learn, and who gets to learn from me, and whom I get to learn from. I appreciate that moment without thinking in advance, because advance can change, and ahead will not always be what we plan it to be. In my plane, I look out the window, and I admire those beautiful landscapes and those small objects. And I take the time to think about the size of the world, which may be huge, but once you're up there, nothing seems greater than you. And during the flight, I look through the movies and decide where I want my mind to escape to. Because escape is always necessary. Escape helps our minds build on more hope. And another escape I like to take is sleeping. With sleeping, I let my dreams guide me to my next destinations. And sometimes in those dreams, I hope to see my family again. However, I forget to mention all those duties we have on that journey. Filling out the paperwork, knowing the safety procedures. There are tedious things we don't usually like to do. Don't you remember when you saw that long queue in the airport, and then you thought about the immigration and the security control when you had to take off your shoes, take your computer out, take your sweatshirt off? They are annoying. But we forget to look at the beauty in it. We forget that while we're in that process, we might be exchanging words with people whose stories we don't know. And yet, they might be amazing. So we forget that after all that safety and rules and procedures that we have to do, what comes after is irreplaceable. So in the world is filled with big planes, small planes, helicopters. Every person has a different story. A person in front of you or behind you might have one that is not very similar to yours. Yet sometimes we're very scared to share intimate things with each other because we're scared of judgment. We don't know how someone else is going to think of us, and we're afraid of that. Yet we forget that their story or our story can impact our way of thinking and can really open up our minds. So I invite you to jump on your plane, to look out the window, to look at the person next to you, to make your story day by day, and to take the opportunities that they are given to you. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to let your emotions out. Remember that the people who love you will not go anywhere. And those are the people that really matter. So remember also that there are people who have it way worse, because that mentality will help you become more humble and will let you live a happier life, appreciating what you have and knowing that it is valuable and that you should really treasure it. And even though planes are uncertain, even though they might take unexpected turns or drop you off in a different destination due to weather conditions, you need to trust the pilot. You need to trust yourself. You need to enjoy the flight, live the flight, and love the flight. Because simply, in the end, everything, absolutely everything, will be okay. Thank you.